How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of a podcast called GHOULISH. I am Max Booth, an undead host, and on today's episode of the podcast, I am talking genre with Craig Wallwork, a man I've known quite a while, probably a decade plus at this point. I think I originally was introduced to him with his novel, The Sound of Loneliness. And that eventually led to me publishing a triplet, a little collection of 3 short stories, a chapbook called Girly Hole, which featured really intense graphic hurl stories. Really fun chapbook. A fun writer who is very diverse in what he writes. For instance, today we're promoting his trilogy of hurl thriller novels, the Tom Nolan Trilogy, and I haven't read them yet, but they sound really fun, and I definitely think Craig is a great writer, so I'm sure these books are excellent. I am recording this intro at 8 a.m. on Friday, the day the episode goes live. And I'm realizing I've never recorded an episode. I've never recorded an intro to one of these this early in the morning. I haven't even had coffee yet. I'm really tired. I would not recommend doing an intro to any podcast at this time of day until you've had coffee. So if you're a podcast person, you were listening to this, looking for podcast tips, my recommendation is to wait to record anything until you've woken up a little bit, because I regretted this immediately. What else can I say? Jessica McHugh's Rabbits in the Garden is out now. Go buy that at Ghoulish Books. Coming up next, we have Betty Rocksteady's Soft Places. That's also available at ghoulishbooks.com. The first 200 people who buy a paperback through the website, they will get a signature sticker plate from the author with a unique creature design. Pretty cool. She drew 200 unique creatures on these things, so they're going to go out pretty fast, I reckon. Also, a brief update on Cody Goodfellow's Perfect Union. That one's a bit behind because of me, but it's coming out soon, any day now, and I will talk about it on the places you talk about books. Please, please be good. Be a good person today, all of you. The day is just beginning. Don't be mean. I don't know. Oh God, I'm tired. All right, that's all I'm gonna say. Leave a review, a rating of the podcast on places you do that. Eat a healthy lunch. Have a good sleep later tonight. Maybe take a nap in the daytime. It's up to you. I might do that. All right. Enjoy my conversation with Craig Wallwork about horror thrillers. Any questions before we begin?
None. I'm in
Excellent.
your hands.
I also have no questions.
So we're just basically going to wax lyrical for a good 30 to
Absolutely.
40, 50 minutes about nothing.
I didn't do any research this weekend, and that's okay. The topic you chose for us to talk about is not one genre, but two genres crossing paths. Do you want to talk a bit about that and why you chose that for today's episode?
Yes. Okay, it goes back to a point in time where I was about to write another book, and my wife consumes thriller literature on a sort of almost daily basis. And she says to me one day, "Why don't you write a thriller?" And I say, "I can't stand thrillers. I've not even read one. But all that kind of airport fiction, mass paperback stuff, Lee Child's, Karen Slaughter, it really doesn't float my boat." She said, "Just give it a go." So I tried a Karen Slaughter, I tried a Lee Child's, and I was pushing against it to begin with. It didn't come to fruition. I kind of left it to one side. She said, "But you've got some experience in that world, because my day job is that I work at a college, which gives me access to police, detectives, people like that." So she said, "You can draw on that and bring it to the book." I know, but I don't like thrillers. Okay. Then I read Thomas Harris, Red Dragon, Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal. Those books changed my mind, because here's a guy who's taken the thriller genre and imbued it with horror. And he also had a literary edge to it. Because when I was reading, nothing against Karen Slaughter, nothing against Lee Child, the John Grishams and all that, they've got the demographic, they write a certain way. It's not my type of writing. So here was a guy who was writing something that I liked. There was flourishes, there were similes, there was some great paragraphs in there. So I said, okay, why don't I try that angle? So I then needed to really go back and find out what is a thriller and what is a thriller horror. So then I had to start do some research on it. So essentially, I'm certainly not going to tell you how to suck eggs, and hopefully I'm not offending any of your audience by going through this really quickly. But the thriller is, okay, the thriller is essentially elements of suspense, mystery, excitement, anxiety, plot twists, and red herrings. That's the kind of component parts that make up a thriller. Horror, as certainly you know and everybody else knows, it's all about scares, terror, gore. It's putting your audience or reader through an experience where they get scared. So they're the component parts, with jump scares, buckets of blood, shock, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So with thriller as well, the audience, they can't predict what happens next. Whereas horror, in some respects, has to be predictable. And by that, I mean, if you've got a lot of promiscuous young adults going to a summer camp, that's not going to end well. And if you know that there's a shark attacking a small seaside resort, that shark has to be hunted down. And if a young girl gets possessed, that young girl needs to have an exorcism. There is some predictability. There's exceptions to this. There are exceptions like The Others, Sixth Sense, The Mist, Silence of the Lambs, as I mentioned earlier, Seven, Scream, Angel Heart, Psycho. They are all horror, in genre. They may blend thriller into it, but they don't have a predictability. There are shocks, there is gore, there is blood, but they also have plot twists, red herrings, and an unpredictability that gives us a suspense. When I realized that, I got on board. And then that's when I decided I'm going to go and write a thriller horror.
Going back a little bit, what do you think it was about, like, say, the Lee Child books that you didn't really jive with?
It's the writing style.
Okay.
Firstly, I'm a lover of words.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm happy to read a book that's 300, 400 pages where nothing happens. But as long as the characters are interesting, as long as the writing's great, I'm in. I'm less attracted to plot-driven books, solely plot-driven, where you've got very 2D characters, but it's just pushing the chapters one after the other, and you're just propelled towards the end. That's your kind of demographic, your poolside, on holiday type demographic. That's not me.
Right.
So I needed something more than Lee Childs could offer. Fortunately, Thomas Harris came along and became that person.
When I was thinking about this topic that you suggested, I mean, Thomas Hill is the person that came to mind immediately, because I think Red Dragon is just like a prolific novel. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of skip that book because of the not so great movie adaptation, and they just go straight for the Silence of the Lambs novel, which is also good. But I feel like, man, that Red Dragon novel, it's just something else. It's so damn good.
Yeah, it's great. And yes, you should go back to, start with Red Dragon. Like you say, Silence of the Lambs is great. Hannibal, he went off the boil a little bit with Hannibal, I felt. And we won't get into Hannibal
Rising.
No.
I think Hannibal Rising was the first time, like, in my reading history, because I think it came out when I was a late teen. Well, I read a book and thought, you know what? I could do better than this. Like, I think there's a moment in every kid's life where they watch movies and read books, and they kind of love everything they watch and read, and then something clicks where they think, oh wait, this just isn't good. I think Hannibal Rising was that for me. It's just, I don't know, because I love the other books so much, and then getting to that one, it felt like a spoiled egg, maybe.
Yeah, it felt like he was paying the mortgage to me.
Yeah, which is understandable.
There was no it wasn't even consistent with the writing style, I felt, with the first two books. Whether that is a consequence of fame, whether it's a consequence of pandering to your audience, whatever it is, when you start writing, you write the stories you want to tell. And I don't know what happens. I'm not in that stage yet in my career where you start to write stories that people you think want to read. And I always try and stay with the former. I have to tell the story I want to tell. And if it resonates with somebody, great. If it doesn't, so be it.
So when you talking about like the craft of writing, because something I've never done, but I know a lot of writers do this, and it feels alien to my own head, is like you said you wanted to set out to write this specific cross genre type of book, and I don't think I've ever like decided like fiercely, okay, I want to write a book in this genre. I think what usually happens with me is I just get like an idea, really, like a small segment of a plot, or maybe a specific character I want to write about. And then the genre itself kind of just comes as I write. Like, it's something I don't even think about. So like when you go into this, or you going into it without even any plot idea in mind, feel like you just think, okay, I'm going to write this specific genre. What would be good for that genre? How do you do this?
Yeah, I stick by what you say there. I have to tell the story, and whatever that story fits within, then that becomes a genre. This was the first time really where I was pushed into trying a genre first, and then the story came afterwards. So normally, if you look at my back catalogue, you've got The Sound of Loneliness, which is a sort of gritty drama with a bit of comedy in it. Then you've got some magical realism in some of the short stories that I wrote. And then it sort of delves into more sort of horror-based stuff. All those stories are very different. the genres are very different. So it was always about telling the story. This one was different. This was certainly different because I was saying, okay, I'm going to enter into a genre I've never been in before, but I can't go in, use the phrase balls deep, straight into thriller.
Yeah.
I need to go and hold the hand of horror to take me there as well.
I think for those listening, to give them an idea of how diverse your writing tends to be, I will just say you do have a book called The Sound of Loneliness out. And you also have something out called Revenge of the Zombie Pussy Eatles. So,
yes. Which I'd like to add you published.
Yes.
So don't throw it all on me.
You saw the title and went, yep, accepted.
Sold.
That's all we need to know.
But even better was, I think, the book title, which was Gory Hole.
Yes.
So if you're just going to go on titles alone, that you should just buy that book.
Yeah. Excellent title. That was a fun time. I still think it's one of the best front covers we've ever had, and I'm surprised we were allowed to sell it on places like Amazon.
Yeah, no, it's a corking cover, and the book was so big you could actually frame it, I think, as well. So it serves two purposes there.
And now you have, it's a trilogy, right? Is it the Tom Noonan Trilogy? Did I have that name right?
Yeah, Tom Nolan.
My bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. He's the sort of protagonist that is the continuity through three of the books. Again, this is the thing. I knew the component parts to thriller. I knew the component parts to horror. If I was going to write a thriller, the contract I drew up to myself was, I'm not going to write a thriller that everybody's going to predict. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them the tropes of a thriller. So the first book starts with an abduction, 3 missing children, small village. Okay. It's been done to death. Everybody's gone, yeah, we've missing children stories are out there. We know it. Okay. And I'm also going to include a character who's a best-selling author. He's looking for his next story, ends up going to a small village in England, gets chaperoned with a detective who walks them through the case. That's the premise. But what I'd started to do was, right, okay, I'm going to lure the reader into thinking they know how this is going to pan out. That was the part of my contract. Make them think they know where they're going. Make that armchair sleuth sit there and go, right, it's definitely that person. That's what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And then pull the rug. I had to pull the rug. If I didn't pull the rug, that book was never going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And the reaction that came on the back end of the first book coming out was it achieved everything that I wanted to do, which was, I didn't see that coming. I thought I knew, but I didn't see that bit.
Yeah.
So that was where I said, okay, I got it. Okay. But when you then decide that you're going to write another one, you're going, oh shit, right? I've got to try now, either do something different or, pull another rug.
You need a new rug. You got to go rug shopping.
Yeah. You're going to IKEA, and you sort of pick out all this furniture and rugs and just keep yanking them. It's what Stephen Graham Jones said, where he said you write yourself into a corner. It's that kind of thing. You just got to keep doing it. So the challenge then became, how can I switch it? What is it that I can do? And part of that is bringing those horror elements in, which is the scares, the sort of very graphic, gory detail, but also how you can keep the narrative moving forward. So it was almost like an exercise, really, for me as a writer to try and sort of spread my wings a little bit.
So comparing these specific books to the other books you've written, like, what do you prefer, do you think? Do you prefer just kind of going in and having the genre find itself? Or do you prefer knowing these limitations ahead of time and trying to fit the rug into an already built house?
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
No, I prefer writing the story, and then wherever that falls, which genre that falls into, whichever rug that lays itself out on, is fine with me. That's how I'm going to go forward. I've done it now, and I'm happy with the trilogy, but I have no desire to go back to it.
I'm gonna be honest. This podcast is beginning to sound like you will selling me regs. Is that are you just some reg salesman?
Busted.
I mean, folks can't see what I'm looking at, but you have like 8 stacks of regs behind you with price tags on them. I thought that was unrelated, but now I'm beginning to think you had some motives.
There's a Persian one here, if you'd like this one. Paisley design.
I have no money.
I'll send you one. This is how it happens in the drug world. You see, I just give you I give you like a tea towel, and then we work up to the rug.
I don't think my dogs would keep them healthy. That's it. They would keep destroying them. They would have to keep buying new ones. We will give a discount code at the end of the podcast for anyone interested in buying a rug. So the trilogy is out now, right? Is the last one already out? When does it come out? I don't know. I did no research.
No, it's fine. This is why I'm here to tell you all these things. It came out on last Friday. So that was, if I'm trying to think of it, July 1st.
Oh, excellent.
So it came out July 1st. Yes. So it's out there. The trilogy's out there now, and buy it if you want to. I will just add that what I did find interesting was the analysis of horror thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
And I prefer, because I'm a huge movie buff, to go to movies more than I would probably books.
Yeah.
And I mentioned there was some exceptions into certainly a real influence on the trilogy that I wrote was Angel Heart,
mm-hmm.
where you've got that kind of unreliable narrator who's pulled into the supernatural world.
Did you I'm interrupting you just for a second, but have you seen The Empty Man?
Yes, what a brilliant movie.
I feel like it would make a great double feature with Angel Heart. They kind of they have the same vibe to me, and both of them exercise a great crossing of those two genres, I think.
Yeah, and it's a tragedy that didn't do better in the cinema.
I agree,
because it kind of slipped by. Nobody really knew about it, and then there was this little bit of a murmur on the internet. Have you seen an Empty Man? And people started to watch it, and it's that urban legend, isn't it? And it blends supernatural stuff. It's brilliant. It's great.
I think it did so badly because it was the last movie that Fox put out right before Disney bought it, so it kind of got like lost in the shuffle, and then no one gave a shit about it.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's such a good movie.
Yeah.
We'll go on about Angel Heart.
Well, so that blends, the sort of thriller suspense, because you're trying to figure out, because you're on the journey with Harry Angel, trying to find this Johnny Favorite character. He's been hired by Louis Cypher, which is a bit on the nose, isn't it? If you're going to write a character that's so on the nose. So it's kind of like a who done it. You're following this private detective along the journey, but there's also supernatural elements that come into it, and there's lots of blood in there and everything else, and then you've got this great reveal at the end. So I was like, okay, this is great. And I'll also say there's another movie that has all these elements in. You may know it. We Need to Do Something.
Sorry?
We Need to Do Something. Do you know that one?
No.
You don't know that one. Okay. Well, there's this little sort of independent, cool movie out there that you need to go and check out. If you strip away that movie, if you take away the gore, if you take away the body horror sections, the supernatural elements, if you take all that away, what you're left with is 4 people in a room and the clock is ticking. So you've got your suspense.
They have a clock.
Well, metaphorically.
Oh, okay. I haven't
It's in
seen
the
it.
other room.
Okay.
You haven't seen it. I'm talking you through it. Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Imagine essentially a toxic relationship between a dysfunctional family. You put them in a room. There's a tornado that happens. A tree falls. It blocks the door. They can't get out. So that's when your clock starts. You know, there's no food. They've got water.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. So they can survive for a certain amount of time.
That sounds pretty thrilling.
It is. It's a very good concept. I don't know who the writer is. Maybe you can research that for the next one.
So I have some thoughts about that. So you tell me a tree, it goes through the house and blocks them from going in. So you trying to tell me the bathroom door opens to the outside? It doesn't just open in?
Yeah.
Well,
No.
that seems like a flaw. It seems like a plot hole somehow.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it does open outwards.
Yeah, no
And most
bathroom
doors
door.
open in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Just doesn't
think it
happen.
would open in. No. But presumably, that's the one thing that you just have to look over. You have to suspend some disbelief, because the writer's presumably starting out in his career,
Probably.
and there's just little bits that they just need to polish.
Also,
But
I think a big mistake beginning that movie with a W, because most movies they have to begin between A and F at the beginning of the alphabet. And also, what a terrible title! Like, what if there was a franchise? What are you going to call the second one? We need to do something too. It needs to be something short and snappy. I don't know. Those would be my notes if I was like the producer of Saw.
We need to feed that back. But
yes,
going back to my point, just going back to the point, you have thriller elements in there, but I think it's packaged as a horror because of all the sort of supernatural elements and the blood and everything else. It works on many levels, and it kind of reminded me really of The Shining a lot.
Yeah,
because you take away the ghosts and everything else. You take away the twins. You take away the blood coming from the lift, all that kind of stuff. You're left with a toxic relationship between a dysfunctional family in a sort of enclosed area.
Yeah, as a dad loses his mind from alcohol dependency.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a comparison that we definitely knew about going into it. And the bathroom design is that specific layout was called the Shining bathroom because the layout is fairly similar to the bathroom in the movie as well of the Shining. But yeah, yes. I do understand what you're saying, and I agree. I also think the horror genre is at its greatest when it is encompassing various different genres, like the thriller genre and comedy and drama. That's when it's at its best, when it has every genre at its disposal and it's using it to its greatest ability.
Yes, and I love when they bring horror comedy into horror as well. Because it kind of depressurizes everything. You want to ramp up the suspense at certain points, then you need to depressurize it, and then you need to ramp it up. And comedy is a great tool to do that with.
Absolutely.
Again, you do it really well. Sorry,
thank you.
The makers do it really well. If we're still keeping distant from the whole thing,
I wouldn't know anything about that. It sounds like a terrible movie.
Can I just add as well, and
yes,
while you're on, because when I was watching it for the second time recently, I watched it on your birthday, and I don't want to give anything away for those people who have not watched it, but I will say this: you could double bill that we need to do something with Bird Box. It almost feels like a prequel. Almost gives the answer to what this thing is that's going around. And I thought that'd be brilliant. And because of the connection as well with Josh, I just thought, the synergy there.
For those listening who do not know, Josh Merriman produced We Need to Do Something. I do agree. Like, imagine them running outside and just finding Sandra Bullock running down with a blindfold.
How fucking cool would that be?
That would have been pretty nice.
Yeah. You should have just done it like a blindfold, just gets thrown in.
I think Netflix would have held like a trained gun to assassinate us. Oh, okay. I think we're about wrapping up with this. Do you have any little thoughts about these two genres that you want to get out before we do some real promo?
No, that was my take on it, really. I mean, there is this, that's the surface layer. There's obviously various other things underneath, Hitchcockian stuff, Psycho, all that kind of stuff. But again, a lot of influences on the actual trilogy. But had I not done that research, had I not looked into it, had I not had a love for all those things, I don't think the Tom Nolan series would be here. So,
discussing the Tom Nolan series, not the Tom Noonan series. Jesus Christ, I can't believe I said Noonan.
Is that guy in Las Vegas?
What are the titles of each book, and also can they be read as standalones? Will you prefer you read them 1, 2, 3?
You have to read it 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Okay.
They do carry on. Yes.
And what are they called?
We start with Bad People, book 1. Moves on to Labyrinth of the Dolls. Excellent. And then the final one is The Ghost of Stormer Hill. And there's a kind of add-on book that sits within the same universe called Heart of Glass, where 2 characters within that, which is about 2 serial killers, they feature in the final book. So I would say if you want to really read it and understand the whole universe, Bad People, Labyrinth of the Dolls, Heart of Glass, then The Ghost of Stormer Hill.
I was told this was a trilogy, but it's not. It's a secret.
No.
What the fuck is that?
There's a little one there.
Quadrulogy? I don't know.
A quartet.
Okay. Excellent. Well, these sound good, and I feel ashamed I haven't read them yet. I'm going to fix that. No, I am stressed out.
I can tell.
All right. Well, hey, how can people find you online?
You can go to my website, which is, not very inventive, www.craigwallwork.com, or you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter at Craig Wallwork, Instagram, and various other places like that.
And that was Craig Wallwork talking about Who'll Thrillers. Go buy his Tom Nolan trilogy, out now from the places you buy books. Then go to Ghoulish Books and buy the spooky books I publish. Leave a review of the podcast on places you leave reviews.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max.